Okay, that's filling the screen. Ready?
Yep.
Good
Morning.
Good morning. Welcome. Oh, someone did put the show. Welcome to the Sun Dragon Sideshow.
The Dear Becky and Lizzie edition. Yay!
Ta-da! I'm showcasing all my sweaters. We had the warm weather sweaters, kind of. This one I threw on and didn't settle. Ta-da! This one, it's the Kordy, right? I think Kordy. I think.
Yeah.
It's from the cover of Turtle and Moon. We might have a few copies left of this book, or the very few books we have in the shop. That was by these two sisters who have written some awesome patterns published by Pom Pom Publishing. Getting that out before I sit down so I can be like, ta-da! I made mine out of Lily Kate Makes Axis. I could have made the sleeves a little shorter. They're a little, like comfy long. Took a butt ton of yarn, but Lily Kate Makes Axis in 150 gram skeins. Made some of the color work, like a smaller size than mine would probably only need one skein of some of these colors. I think I needed two because, I made it big and comfy.
Yeah.
But hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner of Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in crisp and chilly, but is going to get into the 70s, Brevard, North Carolina.
I'm Liz. I'm the minion there.
It's so funny that we've gotten in this habit where I talk about weather because you're the one who keeps track of weather for us.
Yeah.
So I steal her thunder every morning. But no, I like this. This sweater's fun. This sweater was kind of cool because like the short row shaping for the back that some patterns have really loved so far, like doing short rows, doing other things. This one was like do the whole yoke, and when you do sleeve separation, just knit extra rows for the back, which sounds weird but works so that it sits nice. I'm always discovering new ways that people are shaping their sweaters in patterns. So I had someone on our Facebook page. I did a post and I'm making my sweater like from the bottom up, my reluctant homeschooler. And they said, oh, I can't wait to do sweaters and cool things like that. I'm still struggling with dishcloths. And if I have a chance, I'll write them back, but I'll say it here. If you're making dishcloths, if you're doing anything on a dishcloth that involves increases or decreases or any type of textural stitches, you can make a sweater. Just take your time, follow the instructions, you can make a sweater. The most important thing I find about making a sweater and having it come out right, other than taking your time and following the instructions, is testing your gauge before you start. Making sure you have the right stitch count to match the stitch count over so many inches in the pattern that the pattern writer used. And if you don't, change your needle size. I know we've done things about that. We've done episodes about that, and we could talk more about it if someone needs. Write us a question about it and we'll talk about it again. However, so today is the Dear Becky and Lizzie edition.
Today is Dear Becky and Lizzie.
And that means we get to ponder and talk about your questions. And I've got yarn fuzz in my nose. I feel like I'm gonna sneeze. We'll see.
It's not a thing.
I'm trying to prevent the sneeze. It's not gonna work.
No.
Well, talking about it might actually work. I still feel the tickle. I'm vamping while Liz gets her questions. And okay. I am so close to finishing. So last week I tried knitting while you knit and it kind of worked. And I'm so close to finishing this guy. I've just been like
busting it out,
kicking butt and taking names, and my hook just went flying. So I was like, I'm gonna crochet while she knits today. We'll see how it goes. I will hold this up and show it off, and maybe next Tuesday
you'll have a finished.
I'll have all my 40 rows are done, and now I'm doing the ribbing on the ribbing third loop, half double crochets on the other side. Isn't this lovely?
It looks so cool.
I'm on my 9th skein of yarn. It's so crazy because I was I do a little copy paste when I do my morning stuff on Facebook, so I don't have to rewrite the whole thing. And the last time I posted this was like earlier this week, and I was on if it was right, it might have been wrong. Like I might not have fixed this part. I was on like my 3rd skein of yarn, and now I'm on my 9th skein of yarn. It's crazy. Some monogamous crocheting or quasi monogamous crocheting. All that yarn eaten up into this. So Liz,
Yes.
what's our first question to address today?
Our first question is,
While I get my hook.
I have a question or two, maybe. First one is, I hear many different terms for color work and was wondering what they all mean, like how they're done. Any information you can give would be appreciated greatly. For example, mosaic, intarsia, fair isle, stranded, entrelac. I always that
I'm like, what word are you trying to say?
entrelac. It always looks weird to me.
Is it like,
I always want to call it interlac.
is it like ethereal?
Yeah.
Ethereal?
Yeah, that's real. And
Answers to many names, yes.
And whatever other names they're called. Thanks so much. Hugs from Ontario.
I feel like she's hit a lot of the big ones, you know?
Yeah.
Like, my yarn is rolled away over there and I keep tension over here. So this is gonna be fun. But she's hit a lot of the big ones. So we can totally go down the list and give you our best approximation of some of these. So or as many as we can. So why don't you read one from the list and we'll talk about it in
Mosaic.
Mosaic. Okay. Mosaic is I like to call it fake fair isle because like it's coming at it slightly backwards. This and this, what I'm wearing, stranded color work. There's 2 names people can use for like something like this and something like what I'm wearing, stranded color work or fair isle. And they're sometimes used interchangeably, and some people will say that they can't be used interchangeably.
Yeah.
Right. So let's start with that and then go back to mosaic. So
because she has mosaic, fair isle, and stranded, which we lump under stranded because
I don't put mosaic under stranded.
Okay.
Because stranded is, I see where you're going potentially. I use stranded color work as the umbrella category to talk about when there's multiple colors involved at the same time.
Okay.
And I'm thinking you're going towards,
I go because there are strands in the back.
There are floats in the back,
yeah.
No matter what. I use the term stranded color work to, when I see that on a pattern, I assume that multiple colors are traveling across the row at the same time.
Okay.
I know there are strands across the back.
Yeah.
But and again, well, for anyone who's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, hang on a sec. So in olden days, back in the like, I don't know where my snowflake hat is anymore. But that would be an awesome example of what I would call fair isle. Like it used to be that anytime you saw multiple colors in one row doing a pattern of any kind, it would be called fair isle. Like people just toss that term out. And that usually you think of like snowflakes and you think of there are all these classic patterns, and these 2 that I'm holding up are more modern, funky things. But it involves what I'm saying when I talk to Liz and say multiple colors going across the row at once. It involves like, to get this effect in here, like I'd be doing 3 stitches of white and 2 stitches of blue and 3 stitches of white and 2 stitches of blue and repeating that. But both, I'm actually stitching 3 stitches of white and then 2 stitches of blue and then 3 stitches. So in stranded and fair isle, both colors are being knit, like you're alternating between them, but both strands are working across the row, both strands of yarn. So stranded color work. And that and I put mosaic as an adjacent to that. So like this sweater and this sweater, when I knit them, the simplest form of it will only have 2 colors going across. I have a sweater back there, my chunky one that I made, that I had 3 colors going, like really fancy ones that you'll see, really intricate patterns could have upwards of 5 or 6 colors going at once in a row. But most traditional stranded color work will only have 2. They'll keep it kind of simple. I separate, wait, go ahead.
I was gonna go get the mosaic.
Okay, sure. There's a few
I was gonna
mosaic.
get the chain because it
Oh,
shows
that
up
one's fun.
best.
Yeah. We've got the other one, but the chain, yeah, and it's easier to reach. So it's got where you can look at it and you can definitely see that there's multiple colors in one row type of thing. The before Liz holds that one up, I've heard people who are really precise about it. Like I used to just call all of it Fair Isle. And I think that's the geographic area where it was really popular to have these really classic traditional crosses and snowflakes and things like that patterns. I've heard people get really particular and say Fair Isle only applies to those really traditional patterns. And so they will not be happy if everything, if I called this Fair Isle, they'd be like, it's not. It's stranded color work. So like the umbrella of stranded color work and then the subcategory of Fair Isle under it is what I've heard addressed most often. There's lots of stuff out there that uses multiple colors on one row where both colors are being knit like one at a time and going between them and coming out with these cool patterns. But it's not the traditional historic patterns that a lot of knitters are used to. So they won't call it Fair Isle, they'll call it just stranded color work.
Almost like champagne and sparkling wine.
Sure. Explain what you mean by that.
Because
I know, because we've talked about it.
Champagne is only made in Champagne, France.
Yeah.
And everything else is just sparkling wine.
Like mohair, or is it mohair? Is it cashmere?
Cashmere.
Cashmere. Like there are yarns that really are the same thing. They're from goats and but certain like overseers will be like, that's not cashmere because it wasn't made in this area, it wasn't from these goats, or it was, it's soft, sure, but so that's the like stranded versus Fair Isle. Fair Isle is a specific niche within stranded color work. I'm sure we'll see stuff on Ravelry. Well, they will lump stranded and mosaic together, but I like to keep them separate personally. Because like to me, it's like all the strands are moving across at the same time. So let's talk about how mosaic is different, because a lot of people haven't heard about mosaic. I can't so many people who come into the shop are just like, mosaic, what's that? And it's so popular right now. It's just they may not be familiar with the term.
Some of like, before I hold this up, the night shift.
So much.
Andrea Mowry's night shift, the shift cowl, the shifty sweater, the shifty hat. There's all kinds. It's mosaic, and it's one of the, like for our shop, one of the biggest known mosaic things.
Mosaic and bestsellers, and other people. So go ahead and hold it up. Other people will call it slip stitch knitting as well. So these two things might look similar. Like it might look like that has two colors going across it at the same time. I love the bold graphic design. This is Cheryl Faust, the chain. And it's just, it can be so cool when you have stark
the
colors.
best example, like the shocking contrast.
Yes. Yeah. So this has what looks like two colors on the same row, and so does that. And mosaic knitting will often only involve two colors. Like it might have, like this chunk could have had two different colors and this chunk, but it usually only has, this has two colors in the same row. Mosaic can approach the same effect, but you only have to worry about one color per row, even though it looks like, it gives the illusion that you are flipping back and forth between yarns as you went across the row. This one, what's awesome about mosaic is like the row where it's got a lot more white in it than black. That was made by on the way across. It was like knit 6 with the white and slip 4 stitches from the row before, and which the row before was black. So those black stitches will stick up, and then knit 6 with the white, and then slip 4, which slips the row underneath, which keeps the black stitches on that row, but you're not carrying the black yarn. The black yarn is over at the beginning of the row. So you go across with the white, knitting and slipping. And then usually, and I have never come across a mosaic pattern that did not do this. On the way back, you're still working with the white, so you knit or purl, depending on the pattern, your white stitches, and you slip the black ones so they stay up even though they're from the row below. and you get the effect. Like each one of these rows, each one of these lines of color is made by 2 rows of knitting, of going over with the white and back of the same color. And then you drop the white and you pick up the black and you go over with the black and do knitting and slipping.
Flip your sweater inside out too, because
sometimes you can tell by looking at the back. Like there's what Liz was like, it's all, you know, stranded. There's strands across the back. We call these floats. So, but the thing with there'll be fewer floats on the Mosaic because you don't have colors crisscrossing. You only have the slip stitches. Like we've got slips of white and slips of white and slips of white. And on this, we have the strands of all the colors going behind. So you'll have fewer strands on Mosaic and more on stranded color work or Fair Isle. So I think that's an excellent thing to point out to people, which is kind of fun. The October knit along for Sun Dragon is, and I've got 2 projects in here is stranded color work. It's a really simple, not super complicated stranded color work. This has, if we look inside, we have strands of both colors going behind. The white's more prominent, but there's strands of both colors floating behind each other. But this is, with the simplest number of stitches, the illusion of little squirrels. And sometimes you have to look in just the right angle to see that they're squirrels and not weirdly shaped blobs. But, and as I find stranded color work tends to pucker a little bit more maybe than Mosaic. Both of them can benefit from blocking. But this stuff down here that's just been settling on its own looks better than the really loose stuff I've done up here. So, so that is, and I feel like some of the other ones that we could talk about, I don't have examples of all of them, but that's okay. But those are the big, like, Mosaic is, I call it, again, I call it fake Fair Isle. It's one step removed from yarn that patterns to make it look like you did something cool, changing colors. You are using 2 colors, just only 1 color per pass back and forth to create the illusion. So it's like stranded adjacent. I put it the big category of stranded color work, and then Mosaic is right next to it, like a cousin. And then what other things do we have?
The last 2 things, because we've hit Fair Isle stranded.
One of them I can get
Mosaic.
a sample.
We have Entrelac and Intarsia.
I'm gonna tackle Intarsia first.
And I'll go get the Entrelac.
If you'd like. Do you remember where it is? It's kind of over there somewhere. So I don't have a good example of Intarsia because honestly, it's not my favorite thing to do, but it's a really cool effect. Intarsia is where you have like one lump or figure of color, like in the middle of something. So stranded color work, you're carrying the 2 colors all the way across. Like this is a repeated pattern all the way across. If I was doing, like we've had a knitter who's put like a Batman insignia on her kid's sweater. And that's a big patch. Like it's a gray sweater. And then we've got the yellow and the black. And the stuff in the middle here, it's only here, so you don't need to carry it all the way around the other side. So it's locked into the middle, not to be confused with Entrelac, but it's locked. Intarsia is an object or thing that's used on stockings a lot, like Christmas stockings. It's something that's locked into the middle of a piece, but it doesn't necessarily make sense to carry your yarn all the way around, like the whole stocking, if you've got a Santa in the middle. And that one, you need to lock your yarns around each other. You usually have, like, let's say we have let's say we have a white stocking with a green Christmas tree in the middle. One of the easiest ways to do that, and again, I'm not going to talk about doing in the round. Say we were making, let me back up a little.
Almost like my button band.
Yeah, it's where you've got something hanging out only on the side, like a huge example of Intarsia would be having like on Liz's sweater, having the edges of something be one color and the middle is a different color. And one of the easiest ways to accomplish that is you have one color, like say let's go back to the white with the Christmas tree in the center. The white knits right up to the Christmas tree spot where we need to switch. And then only the green carries this way. And then a new skein of white finishes the row. So the white is not carried along the back of the green. Intarsia is something where it's just lumped in. And
you can see the twisties,
kind of, yeah.
kind of this is where
The best we can show you of it, right? So the way to do that, if you just took the white up and dropped it and picked up the green and knit and dropped it and picked up the white and knit with it without being conscious of what you're doing, you would end up with 3 separate pieces that would just have huge gaping holes. So intarsia involves going up with the white, making sure you twist your white and your green around each other to continue with the green, and then twist your green around the new white. It's not as crazy as it sounds. Like Liz was just saying, the little twisties. It's not like twist tying and making a huge knot. My adage for that is old over new. The old yarn goes over, drapes over, and you pick up the new yarn from underneath, and it gives it one little twist, and it keeps, and you do the same thing on the way back. And then you don't have all this wasted yarn thickness behind like the floats here. This isn't wasted because there's only small gaps we have to cover. But in tarsia, sometimes there's huge long gaps you have to cover, and it's a lot of wasted yarn. It's better to have 2 balls of yarn going for the sides.
And it cuts down on the thickness, like
of the finish
finish, because you have all the floats, you have almost double the amount of fabric. And if you're just putting the Batman symbol on the chest, you, unless you want to do little stars all the way around of, you know, the same color, it's just easier to do one.
Yeah. So that's different colors. Now, Entrelac isn't necessarily in the same category as the others we've been talking about. It can be if you decide to change colors on each row. Can you pass me my thing?
Yes.
So since I'm not going to be crocheting today, it's just not going to work out. This is okay. So Entrelac, honestly, I usually do what's called Entrelac with a color changing yarn. Like this, I think how this fits in, probably for the person who was thinking about it, is the way it's done. It looks like you're taking multiple colors and weaving them together like strips of yarn, but it's not actually strips of yarn. I'm going to be teaching this as a one-on-one lesson next week. When you have a slow color changing yarn like this, it can make it look like you have all these different strips that are woven in. When the technique, not going to show it on camera right now, but the technique involves, like, I've got I made squares that went across this way, and now I'm starting to make squares that dip in and go across the other way. It has to do with picking up stitches and knitting stitches together. There's ways to make these squares that go, like the squares that went across here, and then the squares that go across here, that lean in different directions. But I'm not changing colors. Now I could have done something where I have 2 colors and maybe one row, so one set of these diamonds is done with one set of colors, and then the next row is done with another set. I haven't done that to know enough about how easily it could just be you have a million ends to weave in from every pass. But that would make a really beautiful, like, it will look like you did strips of 2 different colors. If you did it with solids and then each pass you switched colors, it would make it look like you had taken strips of each color and woven them in between. Like if I hold up the back of this, it looks like I sewed all these little diamond squares together. I was like, squares, but they're on their side, diamonds. Brain. So it looks like I sewed them all together, and it's ridiculously complicated. And it's not ridiculously complicated. It's just getting used to the technique. Like I've got the whole thing going up here, and I can keep going back and forth. But I wouldn't say it's like I'm knitting with 5 stitches with one color and then changing colors. Like even if I did this with 2, not with one ball that changes colors on its own, even if I did this with one pass of squares or diamonds or whatever is one color, and then one pass is another color, I won't be switching in the middle of the row. I would do a whole row. A whole row would give me 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the next row would give me 1, 2, 3, and then the next row would give me 1, 2, 3, 4. Like it works that way. So I can see how this could get lumped in with all the other ideas of color work, and it's a fancy name, but I wouldn't necessarily put it in the same category as those others. depending on what you do with it.
It's a technique I have not dabbled in yet.
It's a technique I've dabbled in once or twice, and it's fun. And obviously you can see I did this, but I haven't finished it yet.
Most
in
of
timeout.
most of the people that we know that are doing Entrelac are doing color changing yarn.
Yeah.
Because it's
Ito is fantastic. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
well,
cut off
it's
your
just
sentence.
easy to not have to weave in all the ends
And give the illusion that
Yeah.
you changed colors a lot.
Yeah.
So Ito, like Noro yarns that are color changing are fantastic for Entrelac. And that's what most people, Silk Garden, all those others, that's what most people use for it. My lesson next week, we're going to try it with the Wizard, which has a slow color change. And I think we had a knitter who did it. I don't think she liked her pattern, but I don't think it was that the Entrelac effect didn't work with the Wizard. But I don't know for a fact.
She has issues with like color, like if it doesn't come out
Oh,
looking
the
like
colors,
how
yeah.
she
So it wasn't that the
she has
Wizard.
a plan in her head, and I don't think it matched her plan in her head.
My point though was
Yeah.
that it's not that the Wizard doesn't work for Entrelac.
Yes.
It's just that her vision didn't come out the way she
Yes.
wanted it to.
Yes.
So Wizard is another option because Noro isn't the right feel for everybody. That's the other thing is I think this is perfectly soft enough because it's wool. And we were saying, those of us who've been wearing Noro sweaters out on the plaza when it gets windy, it's awesome because nothing gets through it. But some people want stuff that's softer than this when they're knitting. So I don't think this is scratchy, but it's also not merino.
I've loved Carol, and Carol makes her Noro sweaters on a tighter needle than I do. Like mine, I did on an 11 needle, and the wind still doesn't get through it. It's fantastic over something sweaters. Fantastic.
So if you have an idea of something that you consider color work or something like that we didn't talk about, let us know and we'll try to address it the next time we talk about stuff. Do you want to double check and make sure
we have
hit
one more question?
I know, but I
we've
want to
hit
make sure we've
everything.
hit everything on
Mosaic,
that question.
Intarsia, Fair Isle, Stranded, Entrelac,
Entrelac. It's a French thing.
And whatever other
Entrelac.
names. Entrelac.
Well, it's like quinoa. When the yarn quinoa came out, oh my gosh, we had so many different pronunciations.
And I still
quinoa,
quinoa,
which phonetically works.
Yep.
We have people who call the Chowgu needles Chicago's, and we know what they mean, and we find them for them, and that's fine. It's all good. As long as we can get on the same page about the language we're using, I'm good. I'm not going to be super snobby about pronunciations. Like likey needles, I know I'm not saying that right. If it was the original language that they were, I just call them likeys because it's easier for me to remember. So I'm not going to get snobby on someone else other than I razz Liz because it's fun, but I wouldn't do that to a customer. So anyway,
we have one more question.
I'm ready, I think.
Dear B&L, how did each of you end up in Brevard? If too personal, I will respect that, but my favorite part of any Olympics are the up close and personal segments.
Oh, so it's like we got the Bob Costas behind the scenes going on right now. Yeah. You want to go first?
I can go first. I wound up in Brevard because I married a local who was in the Army. Well, we met in college and then joined the Army, and then he medically retired from the Army, and we moved back here to be close to his parents.
There you go.
That's
and I'm lucky that all happened in that way, and that because I couldn't run the shop without her. So I ended up in Brevard. So I was a teacher in my former life, and I was up in Pennsylvania, and budget cuts, and then the only job I found was down in North Georgia. So I'd never been this far south before, and didn't know there were mountains in Georgia, but there are. And that is about an hour and a half away from Brevard. And when I was doing some serious contemplations about a life change, the guy I was with at the time said, the only time I see you happy is when you come home from the yarn shop. I was working at a yarn shop on the weekends down in Clarksville, Georgia, which is even further away from here. And I said, yeah, I've always had this dream of opening a yarn shop. And we started plotting how to, maybe potentially make that happen. And he had clients who used to shop at a yarn shop in Brevard. So he mentioned that. He got the wheels turning on that. And he knew he had knitters from cashers, people who overlapped with his business and what I wanted mine to be. He's like, you'd at least have the cashers knitters. And I started doing my market research and realized I'd have more than the cashers knitters, but it was a good location and it's a place he wanted to live. So we moved here together. And that part of it imploded about a year and a half ago, but I'm still here. And, you know, I did the seed was planted and the person I was with helped make it possible at the time. And I'm really happy that I'm here because this has been an awesome location to do all of this. And it's a great little town. And it's like when I moved to North Georgia for teaching, I was like, the beauty of the mountains around me, it was super remote and that was tough. This is a little less remote than where I was when I was teaching, which is also a wonderful location. It was a great school. But it was very remote for someone like me who mountains aren't the only thing. I'm not like a super big hiker and all these other outdoorsy things, but I do like having that around me as an option, right?
We're very my friends that have come to visit me go, you're in the sticks. And I'm like, no. We're centrally located in the sticks because we
stickier.
We can get to bigger places.
Yeah. We're like an hour give or take from Asheville.
Spartanburg, Greenville.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, you know, like being an hour from New York City or anything, but I'm not a big city person, so that's okay. Like when I first moved to a remote location down in this area and my friends found out I'd be over an hour away from a Target, they were all shocked and mortified. And I adapted very quickly to that, to just being like, I haven't gone to Target in years. And
I'm actually okay with, you know, we've got everything we need within a half hour to an hour.
It's the mountains of North Carolina. It's kind of like if it's less than an hour and a half away, it's local.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, someone who says I'm from Hendersonville, I'm like, you're local. They may not think so because they had to drive to get to us, but it takes a drive to get anywhere of substance, I feel like. And there's awesome stuff that's of substance that's even closer. So yeah, so I was a teacher. I just happened to be down in this area teaching it because where job opportunities were. And then the most logical place to set up a business without moving a super long distance. I moved an hour and a half from where my school was to open the shop, but it was a good location for the person I was with at the time and me. And his family was remotely close by, comparatively speaking. So like there were a lot of reasons this made sense. And now I'm here. And I'm happy to stay here. I'm living in the third place I've lived since starting the shop. But it's working on my own right now. So yay. There's all kinds of other stuff behind this that I'm not getting into right now because y'all don't need to know it. So,
and then it was like July of 2017 is when we first met.
You just got really quiet.
Oh. Sorry.
I'm just letting you know. It's not a secret. We met in July of like the shop wasn't open yet. I was hoping to open the shop like my school year wrapped up. I'd been planning since January of 2017 to get this shop open. And the building across from us just was taking forever to be completed. I was unpacking things around Wi-Fi being put in. They had to cut holes in the wall and like the power box situation. Oh my gosh. Like, oh, excuse me. They had to hydrating. I was setting up around all this other work. Like we had to put tarps over the yarn sometimes because like things were happening out of order. But you came by one time from the woman who helped us find the guy I was with at the time, us find our first place to live, was friends with Liz. I didn't forget her name. I'm just trying to remember the story. So I'm getting distracted. And wasn't it like, what did she say to you?
I would get the dog groomed like once a month and I'd come into town and walk around for, you know, the time it took. And I had all my stops and the same place that helped you find your rental was the same place that sold us our house, or that we bought our house with.
Mhm.
And so I stopped in to say hi, and and she says, there's a new yarn shop in town. And I went, what? And she goes, come on, I'll take you over there and you can meet Rebecca. And I said, okay. And
I still didn't have power
nope.
or air or anything. Like, I had the door propped open so I could unpack, and I had work lights in the back so I could see what I was doing. But yes, that was the day that Yarn Baby arrived too.
Yep, Yarn Baby.
For shipment.
You were just opening the box of Yarn Baby, and I was like, when do you open?
And Hope and Hope introduced me to this she's like, here's someone who is interested in yarn. And then I saw this woman in a big floofy dress and went, hi, how are you? Like, I'm like, Brevard is interested.
Well, before that, everybody just assumed I was from Asheville.
And I think you even did the cute little curtsy thing.
Oh, yeah.
That she always does when she meets people. Yeah. And and she said, I'm in town once a month when my dog's being groomed. And then I started to see her more than once a month. So
yeah, I've been waiting for my permanent residency card for the shop for like 5 years now. And
do you want me to make you a pretty little card?
No, I want a sock. Dobby wants a sock.
No, then I'd have to pay you more. So no, so yeah, it's we both had circuitous routes to get here. But how much, like, when did you move in more?
We moved up here January of 2015.
So,
and we bought the house, I want to say January or March of 2016.
And see, I moved around June of 2017, and when I met Liz, I kind of assumed she'd always been here forever. So, but not that much longer than me. So
no.
And I'll say we should wrap up and start opening the shop soon. But I will say, when I first opened the shop and I was a budding young, yay business, I don't know what I'm doing, and people would come in and say, are you local? And I didn't understand what that meant at the time. And I would say, I am now, I moved here. That's not what they were asking. They were asking if I grew up here, and I didn't. And I've learned, if anyone asks me that now, I will it's not like I was being dishonest before. I just didn't fully garner what they were asking. I will say, no, I love the area and I moved here to open the shop, which is true as well. It's just, it's more tailored to the question they're asking. Neither one of us personally is local to the area, as in we grew up in this area. But there's a mishmash of people in this area. There are a lot of people who grew up here, and there's a lot of people who moved here. And there are pockets of both of those groups who like the other group, and pockets that have issues with the other group. And so it's always interesting to feel out the vibe. So
I just tell everybody I married a local.
That tends to cover all the bases.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, so hopefully that gives you enough of the dish and behind the scenes on us for the moment. I like that person asked, like, hey, if it's too personal, like, because there are, like, we tell you to write in with questions, and we also say try to keep them, like, our story of moving here, like, at least in us meeting, does pertain to knitting and crocheting. If something is ever too personal, we will tell you, or we will address it on the side instead of addressing it here on camera. But these are things I'm comfortable talking about. So, yeah. I came here for the yarn, or like to bring yarn back to the area. And the yarn shop that used to be here closed about 5 years before I opened mine. And we still have people who are coming in, and I've been in business for 10 years. So that means she's been gone
5 years.
My brain jumped ahead.
I know.
I've been in business for 5 years, which means her shop has been gone for 10. That's where my brain was going. So thank you for catching that, Liz, because yes, my brain goes. It's been 10 years since her shop has been viable in downtown Brevard, but people still have wonderful memories of her shop, which is awesome. We still have people coming in saying, I used to shop, or are you the same shop? Or, like, sometimes time just feels like it hasn't passed for some people, which is intriguing, but it's one of those, oh, you moved. And I'm like, well, I moved from right over there, but I'm not the one that moved from across from the college. And we have our own flavor, and some people like it and some people don't. and we are appreciating all of y'all who are sticking with us. So, we should go.
We should.
We already have, not tons. I've gotten a handful of votes on, it wasn't this one. I do like that color, but I know thinks I don't remember. I did just pick up the other stuff and go, what? It's pretty evenly split across these, actually. I've gotten votes for all three. This one's really hard to see on camera. And honestly, this one is probably going to be the one it's going to be. But I've had some votes for this and this. And I agree with y'all that they're luscious. And this one would look awesome on me. But I have stuff in the shop. If anyone still wants to weigh in, it's like 1, 2, and 3 are A, B, and C. And I might even put up a post on social media. And we'll see if, like, I've been working my butt off on this. I'm almost done with it. So maybe I can start this over the weekend.
That would be cool.
Now that I've buried my face in this middle one, it probably should be mine. So
just take it home and get your needles.
But you can still make your arguments for what color I should make mine out of. Yeah, that's
she always says that.
This weekend, this past weekend, I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Monday was a day. And Liz said, start a new project. And I said, I don't have anything new. I didn't bring anything new home to start.
That was her first problem.
That was, so I worked on this one. It all worked out. It's all good. Anyway, if anyone who loves this color, you should make something out of it. It's really pretty. I might not be making something out of it, but it's really pretty. So
you could do a hat.
Yeah, I should do something else first because I already have a small sample of this for the shop, but I could.
Well, let's see. A green hat out of that.
Yeah.
It would set off your eyes. And B, it would go really well with the blue or the pink sweater that you're going to make.
Or 3. Yeah. Anyway, yes, that's an idea. I don't do many hats lately, but I should probably get back into that.
Or
yes,
you could do cuff collar and hem of your blue sweater out of your green.
I could, but I tend not to stray outside the box. Carol would be so proud, but I'm probably
not. It's not straying outside the box to change color. It's straying outside the box to change pattern.
We'll see. Okay.
It's not going to happen. So,
I'll do little fake add-ons and be like, ta-da! Okay. I mean, even just changing the bottom of this, like the bottom of this, that was not in the pattern. And that it took some time to adjust to, but I ran out of yarn. So, yeah, we're going to go open the shop and do what we need to do. And we hope you all have a fantastic day. And we have sit and stitch tomorrow night from 7 to 9 p.m. Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Get into Zoom with the shop phone number.
828-877-3550.
And our Sunday thing is not for a couple weeks. So I'll remind you all of that. It's like next week. It's not this Sunday. But I'll remind you all of that next week. So have a great day and a great weekend. And we'll see you next week. Bye. Bye.